I have actually received a surprising amount of requests for how to eat in VR. So, since we're so close to the holidays and everyone's going to be eating a big feast, I hope, I will show you how to eat your own feast in VR. So, let's jump into it. I'm going to start out with a brand new project. We're going to be using 2021.2.7 in this version. I'm going to show you how to do all of the eating parts first, and then afterwards I'm going to show you how to set up the XR part of things. So if you already know how to do the XR part, then all you have to do is watch the beginning, and if you want to see the whole process, then you have the whole video. So there we go. I just like showing y'all how to do the whole process start to finish. I don't like just doing this in little segments. So to help all of you out who need that context, I'm going to do the whole video. So let's jump into it. We're going to call this eating tutorial. It's just going to be a standard 3D project. While that's booting up in the background, I'm going to show you the asset pack that we're going to be using for this particular tutorial. So I'm going to be using RPG food and drinks pack. So you can just search for that on the Unity asset store. The reason we're going to be using this is because, as you can see in this video, they have different sections of, eating food. So there's different states of the food from full to halfway. So we'll be able to actually use this in our code to simulate eating. Now that we've got our project up and running, let's go ahead and import that asset. So let's go to Window, Package Manager, and then My Assets. And then you can just type in RPG food. It should come up. There we go. You just need to download it and then import the latest version. It'll come with a whole bunch of assets. It comes with a couple scripts too. We're actually just going to uncheck those, not download those. And we also don't need the demo scene as well. So we just want the materials and the prefabs. So import that. And then for this particular project, we're going to be using the turkey leg. So I'm going to find it inside of prefabs, or I think it's a ham. It's going to be ham. So I'm going to drag that into the hierarchy here and then double click on it to zoom in. And there we go. And if you look over here on the inspector, you'll see that, I'm going to reset it back to the center. So if we look over here on the inspector, you'll see there's a script that was here and has been removed, and that's because we just didn't import the script. So I'm just going to right click on it and click remove component, and that'll take it away. And then if we expand the ham in the hierarchy, you'll see there is ham 4 of 4, 3 of 4, 2 of 4, and 1 of 4. And these all relate to the state of how eaten this ham is. So for example, I can turn on ham 3 of 4 and turn off 4 of 4, and you'll see it goes down a little bit. Same thing for 3 of 4 and 2 of 4, so turn off 3/4. And there's one more state, the 1/4, and then we can actually even turn 1/4 off and we're left with just the bone. So we're going to add some code to this model and have it kind of step down every time we take a bite of this particular food item. And this applies to all of them. So if we have a pie in here, you'll see that the pie also has different states. So I could turn on pie 3 of 4 and turn off 4 of 4, and you'll see that it goes down in chunks as well. So let's make a script. I'm going to go back up to my assets folder, right click, create folder scripts. And then inside of our scripts folder, right click, create C# script. And we're just going to call this consumable because we want this to be able to apply to food, drinks, anything that you can consume in portions. So we don't just want to call it food or something generic like that. So double click on it to open it up. I'm going to clean up this starting folder a little bit, and we're not going to need the update method. So delete that. There we go. Now we have just the basic. All we're using is Unity Engine, and then we have this mono behavior consumable. And for all the portions that we're going to use, we're going to have a serialized field of game objects, and the game objects are going to be an array. So add in these square brackets, and we can call this portions. We just need to remember to set this in the inspector. And then we're also going to have a serialized field integer, and this is going to be an index. So what portion are we on? And we're going to set this equal to 0. Default is 0, but I like to just have it in there so we know. And then we're also going to want to have an audio source so we can play an eating sound whenever we eat this particular object. So I'm going to add in a audio source, and we're going to call it _audio source. The reason I add the underscore is because no one else can access this property. This is just within this particular class, unlike the serialized fields that can be accessed from the inspector. So that's the reason I differentiate that, even though they're both private. And then in our start method, we're going to get the audio source. So audio source equals get component audio source. And then we're gonna go ahead and set the audio source to play on awake equal to false, just in case we forget to set it in the inspector. We just don't want right when everything spawns in, you to hear a chomp sound, like you're eating something already. And then we want to have a method that goes ahead and sets whatever index we have to that corresponding portion for the item of food. So I'm going to just make a method called setVisuals. And then down below, we're going to create that. So void setVisuals. And inside of this method, we want to loop through every portion and set that to active or not active, depending on what the index is. Create a for loop of I of length portions dot length. And you'll see this the green comments that show up below are actually the hotkeys that I'm using. So some of y'all were asking, what button did you press for doing that? So I added a little hotkeys kind of script to the bottom so you can actually see what buttons I'm pressing if I type something in and forget to actually tell you what I typed. So in this particular case, we're looping through portions.length. And we're going to say for whatever portion we're currently on, so portion I, we're going to set that portion active if the I is equal to index. So if the iteration for the for loop we're on is actually equal to whatever index we're at, we're going to set that one to active. Everything else will get set to not active. And then we also need a method to actually set visuals, during game time. So right now we set everything up at the beginning, but we don't have a way to actually set things when we're eating it. So we're going to add a new method, and this is going to be a public void. We're going to call this consume. And then the first thing we want to do inside of consume is check to see if we are actually done consuming this. So we're going to say if, and then we're going to make a method for this. So is finished, or a property rather. So if we're not finished, then we want to up the index. So index plus plus, and then we're going to set visuals. And then we can also do audio source dot play. And then the last thing we need to do is set this is finished. So I'm just going to go up here at the top and we're going to say public bool is finished. It's going to be equal to, and we're going to do equal. This is an expression body operator. So basically just says set is finished equal to whatever's on the other side of this arrow. And that's going to be equal to the index equal to portions.length. So if we get to the end of the portions that are listed, so this accounts for, we could have 5 portions, 10 portions, whatever, however tiny you want to segment the bytes, we have a operator that checks to see if we're finished. And this just prevents errors. And then in order to test this without actually having to go into VR and pick it up and try to eat it, all we have to do is set a context menu and we'll just say consume. And this will allow us to actually call this method from Unity. So one more look at the code just to review. We have a list of portions, a index, an is finished check to see if the index is actually at the portion's length, which means we've hit the very end. We have an audio source, and then we set everything up at the beginning. With the audio source, we get that component, and then play on awake is false. And then we go ahead and set up the visuals. So just in case we set the portion to equal 1 or 2, or, if this meal is not all the way full, we can go ahead and set that at the start without having to automatically have everything full at the very beginning. And then set visuals just loops through and sets each portion to whether or not that index is active. And then finally consume checks to see if we're finished eating. And if we're not, we'll increase the index, set the visuals, and then play the audio source. So back in Unity, now we just go to the ham, drop in the consumable script, and then I'm going to lock the inspector, click on the top portion and the bottom portion, holding down shift, that'll grab all of them, and then just drag and drop into portions. And the order here is important, so make sure the fullest portion is here at the top, and you can rearrange them just by clicking and dragging over here on the left side. And we'll start our index off at 0, play, and then switch back to scene view. And then over here, the beauty of this context menu is we can right click on consumable and go down, and you'll see we have a new button, consume. And when we click it, you'll see the meal goes down. And you'll see this index is incrementing, and now we're at the end. If we consume again, the index just stays at 4, which is exactly what we want. But what if we, want to go back up to the beginning? You'll say like when we, or even, here in the inspector, let's go back to the code and add in one more method. After start, we're going to say on validate. And all we're going to do on validate is set visuals. And this allows us to increment the index and have everything update inside of the inspector without having to hit play mode. So here we can set the index to 1 and 2. You'll see how it automatically decreases and updates everything. So that's what on validate means. It means anytime you change anything inside of this script in the inspector. So we can adjust everything how we want. Just a fun little trick for you. And then we want a consumer. So we have a consumable. Let's make a script that actually consumes consumables. So right click, create a new C# script, and this is going to be consumer. Open that up in Writer, and I'm going to clean this class up again. And this one's relatively simple. All we need is a collider. And it could be any collider, so I'm not specifying box collider, sphere collider, or anything like that. And then in the start method, we want to get the collider. So collider is going to equal get component collider. And then we're going to set this collider is trigger equal to true. So just in case we forget it in the inspector, we can automatically set it here in the start method. And then create a new method on trigger enter. And we're going to check to see if the thing entering the trigger area is a consumable. So consumable is equal to other. So whatever is getting passed in, dot get component consumable. So this will not be null if other, the item getting passed in, is a consumable. So we're going to say if consumable is not equal to null, and we're also going to check to see if the consumable is not finished. So if consumable is not equal to null and consumable is not finished. So we added this not operator in front of is finished. Then we can do consumable.consume. Ta-da! And this one's pretty simple. You just set up the collider at the beginning, and then on trigger enter, we're just going to check and see if it's a consumable, and if it is, we consume it. And now we just have to make sure that this script is on the same game object that the collider is. And realistically, anything could be a consumable. We could check that without setting up the XR rig by creating a new empty object. We'll just call this a consumer. Unlock the inspector so we can actually see it, and then drag the consumer script on there, and then we're going to add a box collider. We're going to reset the transform back to the center, move it over, and let's make the box collider quite small. So on the ham, we're going to add a box collider, and it automatically puts it around the bone, but we actually want the box collider to be around the ham meaty part that you would actually eat. So I'm going to adjust this by clicking this tool, and then let's move this collider so it lines up better with the actual ham. And this is kind of tricky sometimes because your perspective is off, so you have to kind of move around, and this doesn't have to be super accurate, but there we go. So that's a better collider. And this one doesn't have to be a trigger. And one more thing we forgot to add is an audio source. So let's drop an audio source into the ham game object. And then for an audio clip, I'm actually going to go to freesound.org, and there's this eating sound effect. It's like a chomp kind of sound. So I'm just going to download that to my computer, and then we're going to drop it into the right project. So eating tutorial, assets, and then we're going to make a new folder called audio. And save that there. And now, inside of our audio folder, we have this sound clip. So on the ham audio source, let's drag and drop that audio clip there, and then play and awake, we can uncheck. And the last thing we actually need to add onto the ham is a rigid body. And we're going to set use gravity equal to false because we don't want it to just fall off into oblivion at the moment. So let's hit play. We'll see this run again. Go back into scene view. I'm going to click on the consumer, and we'll watch how this happens. So eat. And there we go. So let's set this up so it actually works in VR now. First thing we're going to do is go to our project settings. So edit, project settings, and I'm going to dock that right next to the, actually, we'll just make it big here. We're going to go down to XR plugin management and install that. And then for our PC tab, we're going to check OpenXR. And that's going to install the OpenXR package. And it's going to ask you if you want to restart Unity so it can update to the newest input system. So just hit yes for that. Unity will reboot. And now it's giving us a little warning. So we want to drop down into the OpenXR section and add in a couple of controller profiles. So we're going to do Valve Index, Oculus Touch, and HTC Vive. And then if you have the issue where you only see in one eye for some instance, try checking multipass instead of single pass instantiated up here in the render mode, and that should fix your issue there. And then let's go back into XR plugin management over to the Android side and check Oculus. And that'll install the Oculus SDK. All right, that's all we need in the project settings for now. Now let's go to Window, Package Manager, and then we're going to add in the XR Interaction Toolkit, but the Interaction Toolkit has actually been, it's not showing up anymore. Even if you add if you go to advanced project settings and enable the pre-release packages, then it still does not show up. So even if we refresh here, it doesn't show up. So what we're going to need to do is hit this plus icon and then add project from git URL. And we're going to type in com.unity.xr.interaction.toolkit. And this is the Unity Git URL for that particular package, and that'll install the latest version for us. It's going to say the XR Interaction Toolkit has recently been updated to a 2.0 version, so if you have a 1.0 version, this will cause some breaking changes, so just say I made a backup, go ahead, and it'll continue to import that package. And then we want to expand the samples dropdown and import the default input actions. And that'll give us some pre-set up controller profiles so we don't have to set up what each button does. All right. And then if we look in our project window, we'll go to Samples, XR Interaction Toolkit, and then the 2.0 release, and then Default Input Actions. And then we have 5 presets here, and I'm just gonna go through and click on the button up here in the inspector and add each of these presets. One more thing, go back to Edit, Project Settings. Inside of the preset manager, you'll see we have all of our presets here that we just added, and we want to differentiate the right from the left. So just in this filter here, we're just going to type right and left. And now we can add in our XR rig. So we're going to right click in the hierarchy, go down to XR, and it's actually been renamed from XR rig to XR origin. So we want this XR origin action based one, and then just go through and check and make sure that the left hand actions have left hand references and the right hand actions have right hand references. And on the interaction manager, we're going to add a component, and this is going to be an input action manager. And then we're going to click on the plus button, click on this little dot here, and add in the XRI default input actions. And that'll hook everything together. And then let's add in a floor so we don't fall. So we called ground. Make sure this is set to the center. Make sure our origin is reset to the center. And then we're going to pick our ham up and kind of rotate it so it's facing up, and right there-ish is fine. Now we need the ability to actually pick up the ham and eat it. So on the ham object, we're going to add a grab interactable, and I'm just going to check smooth position and smooth rotation. And we also want to grab point, because right now if we picked it up, you'll see the blue arrows pointing down, so the ham would actually be facing kind of weird. So we're going to right click on the ham, create a empty object, and call this attach point. And then I'm just going to rotate it around so that the blue axis is pointing in what a forward position would be, and then we'll drop it down a little bit so you actually hold it by the bone. There we go. And then we drop in that attach point into our attach transform, and then we want to drop the consumer game object that we made as a child of the main camera. So we're going to make sure that the consumer has been reset to the center, and then the main camera, and then we're going to kind of position this where the mouth would be. So right here, just below and maybe in front of the camera. So when the person puts food up to their mouth, it's like right below their eyes. And so their eyes would be right here where the camera is. And since that's parented, it'll go wherever the camera goes and face wherever the camera faces. So it's exactly what we want. And now let's test it and see if it works. So now if we hit play, we can pick up our ham, see it grabs by the attach point, and then we can eat it. Perfect. And there's no errors or anything when we try to eat it anymore. And there we go. We have a working food item. And there we have it. Eating in VR. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you run into any issues along the way, feel free to type them out in a comment. Or if it's a little more complex of an issue, you can join our Discord. And we have super helpful people there, and we can help you out, figure out what your issue is, and help you solve it. If you are interested in the source code for this particular project, there is a link down in the description. If you support me through Patreon, you can have access to that. I really appreciate all of my Patreon supporters. They really help me continue to do videos like this. Leave your suggestions for what the next video should be down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.